Dear friends, Jai Bhim, Jai Bharat, Namo Buddhaya. I am reading this book, A Way to Nibbana, by Venerable Narathera, published by Buddhist Cultural Center, Sri Lanka. This book is giving information about the concept of Nibbana in Buddhism. I have already finished one chapter in 3 videos on Karuna, Metta, Mudit and Upekha, the 4 virtues. Now I am begin another chapter, The Way to Nibbana. The middle path leads to tranquility, realization and enlightenment and Nibbana. Dhammachaksut. Morality. The way to Nibbana is the middle path which avoids the extreme of self-mortification that weakens the intellect and the extreme of self-indulgence that retards moral progress. This middle path consists of the following 8 factors. Please listen this. This middle path consists of the following 8 factors: right understanding, right thoughts, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. The first 2 are classified as wisdom or panna, the second 3 as morality or sil, and the last 3 as concentration or samadhi. So let us see which are these. The first 2 are wisdom, and these first 2 are right understanding and right thought. So it is panna or wisdom, that is right understanding and right thoughts. The next, the second 3 as morality or seal. In Sanskrit, seal is called as shila. So what are the 3 seals or morality? Right speech, right action, right livelihood. Right speech, right action, right livelihood. The first were the 2 wisdom. The first 2 were the wisdoms, right understanding and right thought, and the last 3 as concentration or samadhi. These 3 are right effort, right mindfulness and right action. Right effort, right mindfulness and right concentration. So wisdom path are right understanding and right thought. Morality or seal path are right action, right livelihood and right speech. And the last 3 are the concentration or samadhi part, the right effort, right mindfulness and right concentration. According to the order of development, morality, concentration and wisdom are the 3 stages on the grand highway that leads to Nibbana. These 3 stages are embodied in that beautiful ancient verse, Sabba Panasa Akkar Nam Kusalasa Upasampada Sachi Tapari Dopana Atam Buddhan Sansam. To cease evil, to cease from all evil, to cultivate good, to purify one's mind. This is the advice of all Buddhas. See what he is saying? To cease from all evil, to cultivate good, to purify one's mind is the advice of all the Buddhas. To reap what we sow, evil results in pain and good in happiness. Our pain and happiness are the direct result of our own good and evil. The person with a right understanding realizes this just law of action and reaction and of his own accord refrains from evil and does good to the best of his ability. He does so for his own good and for the good of others. He considers it his duty to live as a blessing to himself and to all others. What he said previous to this, he is telling this about that we reap what we sow, evil results in pain and good in happiness. Our pain and happiness are the direct results of our own good and evil. Knowing that life is precious to all, as that none has any right whatever to destroy the life of another, he extends compassion and loving kindness, that is, karuna, compassion and loving kindness, that is, metta, towards every living being, even to the tiniest creature that crawls at his feet, and refrains from killing or causing injury to any living beings. I would like to add here my what I do. I go to park for a walk, and there I I see many ants on the path. So I try to keep an eye on those ants so that they won't get killed. There is no rule that one is to be preyed upon by another. However, the strong do mercilessly kill the weak and feast on their flesh. This is animal instinct. Such actions by animals are excusable because they know not what they do. But when those who are gifted with reason and understanding perpetrated such crimes, there is no excuse, whether to satisfy one's palate or as pastime. It is not justifiable to kill or to cause other living beings to be killed. If the killing of animals is wrong, how much more heinous is it to kill human being individually or collectively employing brutal or so-called civilized methods for the sake of peace, religion, or any other seemingly good purpose. Honesty, trustworthiness, and uprightness also are the characteristics of a person with right understanding. What are these? Honesty, trustworthiness, and uprightness are also characteristics of a person with right understanding. Such a person tries to abstain from all forms of stealing, whether in its dissembled or obvious forms, abstaining from sexual misconduct, which debases the exalted nature of man. He tries to be pure and chaste. He avoids false speech, harsh language, slander, and frivolous talks, and speaks only what is true, sweet, kind, and helpful. A certain drinks and drugs promote heedlessness and mental distraction. He avoids intoxicating liquor and cultivates heedfulness and clarity of vision. These elementary principles of regulated behavior are essential to one who treats who treads the path to Nibbana chiefly because they tend to control both deeds and words. Violation of them introduces obstacles and hinder his moral progress of the path. Observance of them means smooth and steady progress along the path. Having progressed a step further in his gradual advance, the aspirant now tries to control his sense, to control craving for food and to promote buoyancy of mind and body. Abstemious, abstemiousness or fasting at least once a month is advisable. Plain and simple living is preferable to a luxurious one which makes one a slave to passions. A life of celibacy is recommended, as one's valuable energy, thus conserved, could then be utilized wholly for the intellect and moral welfare of oneself and others. In such a life, one is detached from additional worldly bond that impede moral progress. Almost all spiritual teachers, it would appear, have nourished their bodies sparingly and have led a life of strict celibacy, simplicity, voluntary poverty, and self control. While he progresses slowly and steadily with regulated words and deeds and sense restraint, the kamic or karmic force of the striving aspirant compels him to renounce worldly pleasures and adopt the ascetic life. To him then comes the ideas that a dent or strife is household life, a filled with toil and need, but free and high as the open sky, is the life the homeless lead. I would repeat this again. A dent or strife is household life and filled with toil and need, but free and high as the open sky is the life of the homeless lead. Is the life the homeless lead. Thus, realizing the vanity of sensual pleasures, he voluntarily forsake all earthly possessions and donning the ascetic crafts tries to lead the holy life in all its purity. Moral laymen, more laymen can realize Nibbana. It is not, please listen this carefully, it is not, however, the external appearance that makes a man holy, but internal purification and an exemplary life I would repeat this again. It is not, however, the external appearance that makes a man holy, but internal purification and an exemplary life. Transformation would come from within, not from without. It is absolutely necessary to retire to solitude and lead the life of an ascetic to realize Nibbana. The life of a bhikkhu, no doubt, expedites and facilitates spiritual progress, but even as a layman, sainthood may be attained. He who attains arhatship or sainthood as a layman is in the face of all temptations is certainly more praiseworthy than a bhikkhu who attains arhatship living amidst surroundings that are not distracting. Concerning a minister who attained arhatship while seated on an elephant deck in his best apparel, the Buddha remarked, even though a man be richly adorned, if he walks in peace, if he be quiet, subdued, certain, and pure, and if he refrains from injuring any living being, that man is a Brahmin, that man is a hermit, that man is a monk. There have been several such instances of laymen who realized Nibbana without renouncing the world. The most devout and generous lay follower, Anathapindik, was a Sotan, Sutpan, Suttapan. The Sakya Mahanama was a Sakyagami. The potter Ghatikar was an Angami. The king Sudhodhan died as an Arhat. A bhikkhu. A bhikkhu is expected to observe the four kinds of higher morality, namely Patimukha Sil, or the fundamental moral code, Indriya Samvara Sil, or morality pertaining to sense restraints, Ajiva Parisuddhi Sil, or morality pertaining to purity of livelihood, Pachya Sanisita Sil, or morality pertaining to the use of the necessaries of life. I would repeat this: the fundamental moral code, morality pertaining to sense restraint, morality pertaining to purity of livelihood, morality pertaining to the use of the necessaries of life. These four kinds of morality are collectively called Sil Visuddhi, or purity of virtue, the first of the seven stages of purity of the way to Nibbana. When a person enters the orders and received his higher Upsampada ordination, he is called a bhikkhu. There is no English equivalent that exactly conveys the meaning of this Pali term bhikkhu. Mendicant, monk, may be suggested as the nearest translation, not in the sense of one who begs, but in the sense of one who lives on alms. There are no vows for a bhikkhu. Of his own accord, he becomes a bhikkhu in order to lead the holy life as long as he likes. He is at liberty to leave the order at any time. A bhikkhu is bound to observe 220 rules, apart from several other minor ones. The four major rules which deal with perfect celibacy, stealing, murder, and false claims to higher spiritual powers. What are these four? Celibacy, stealing, murder, and false claims to higher spiritual powers must strictly be observed. If he violates any of them, he becomes defected or parajik and automatically ceases to be a bhikkhu. If he wishes, he can re-enter the order and remain as a samner or novice. In the case of other rules which he violates, he has to make amends according to the gravity of the offences. Among the silent characteristics of a bhikkhu are purity, perfect celibacy, voluntary poverty, humility, simplicity, selfless service, self-control, patience, compassion, and harmlessness. I would repeat this again. Among the salient characteristics of a bhikkhu are purity, perfect celibacy, voluntary poverty, humility, simplicity, selfless service, self-control, patience, compassion, and harmlessness. The life of a bhikkhu, or in other words, renunciation of worldly pleasures and ambitions, is only an effective means to attain Nibbana, but is not an end in itself. So he has written in this chapter that it is not only that bhikkhus but a worldly man can also attain Nibbana, and Buddha has said about the worldly man that even though a man be richly adorned, if he walks in peace, if he be quiet, subdued, certain and pure, and if he refrains from injuring any living being, that man is a Brahmin, that man is a hermit, that man is a monk. So we would start about the next chapter about the Nibbana, that is the meditation, and we will continue in another video. I hope you will enjoy this. This is from this book, The Way to Nibbana by Venerable Narad Thera. Thank you very much for listening. Jai Bhim, Namo Buddhaya.